This video is sponsored by MPB. Hello everybody, how's it going? Hope you're all well. This, as you might be able to see, hopefully you can see, is the Nikon ZF. Nikon, I don't know. Of all the cameras that get suggested to me, this is the one that gets recommended by far the most of the cameras that I haven't previously tried. So I thought I should spend a couple of days with it and work out what I think of it, rather than being asked about it and say, oh, I've never used it, I don't know what I think of it. So that's the plan. This is not going to be a review though. I'm not going to look at the ecosystem, the price, the competition. I'm not going to be digging into the menus. This is just a couple of days with this camera to get some rough ideas of, what I make of it. So if that sounds of interest, then stick around. I should say I did go and see Nigel to see if he could help me set this up, because I've not used a Nikon for a long time, but truth be told, he wasn't much help.
Custom controls, shooting, that's the button there, and it's now on bracketing. So why is it not allowing me to set bracketing burst?
I'm only joking. I edited that like a devil. Nigel is always helpful, but I went to see him mostly to check out his new toy, which I'll show at the end of the video, but should probably start the video first. A few days ago, actually, just there, if I'd have stopped there, that would have been quite a nice smooth transition. Never mind. Oh no, no. Serious bit of travel advice. If you come here to Llandudno, don't eat your food on the front. Coffee seems fine, but anything else, you will be attacked quite aggressively by the seagulls. That is serious travel advice. I've seen it thousands of times in my life. It's always quite sad to witness. What am I supposed to be talking about? Some initial impressions. Very initial impressions. I've hardly shot with this. The shutter, I'm a big fan of the sound of that. Personal preference, everyone's different, but I really like it. What is also personal preference, I suppose, is how a camera feels in your hand, and this is not to my liking at all. And I suspect I'm not the only one, because there's quite a big market, it seems, for grips for this camera. But without a grip, I'm not finding it particularly comfortable at the moment. Maybe that'll change. Probably not. Also, what is normally a red flag for me with a camera is when they don't have a joystick for focusing. Now, this camera doesn't have a joystick, but I'm finding that okay, because there is a feature, much like on the Hasselblad X2D, where you can select a portion of the screen to essentially act as a joystick. And that's great, because if you want to focus on the left of the screen, your thumb doesn't need to go all the way to the left of the screen, it just has to go to the left of the portion of the screen that you've selected. In my case, the top right quadrant. Yeah, seems pretty responsive. So initially, at least, I'm not missing a joystick. But we'll see how we go. Let's go and shoot for a bit. Talking of seagulls, Noah made me laugh the other day. He came home from Em's mum's house and he said that they'd found a dead bird. So I asked him if it was a seagull. And he said, no, Daddy, seagulls can't die. Oh, to live inside the mind of a 3-year-old.
I actually did fall asleep there. Baby's still keeping us up at night.
Oh, this shutter. Sounds amazing. This Lido I have never shot at before, which is daft, because I think it's quite an interesting place to shoot, provided you arrive before the children, for obvious reasons. But if you've been following the channel of late, you'll know that I'm a little bit obsessed at the moment with the idea of letterbox crops. So you might see me employing those with some of these shots. I can't do it in camera, so I'll decide in the edit, I suppose. And I am a little bit restricted with this by the 24 megapixels. Restricted by 24 megapixels, that is such a 2025 thing to say, isn't it? Never mind. Well, I'm back on the cable car. I don't know why, I don't much like it really, but here we are. I was first on here this time last year, I think, when I was testing that OM system camera, and I think Llandudno is becoming my favourite place to test out new gear. Mostly because it's very close to where I live. Thing is, I think you could test out new gear basically anywhere and it wouldn't matter because you can't tell a difference really between the pictures of one camera versus another. I know I was talking about megapixels before, but particularly when you're looking online and you're not pixel peeping, all cameras produce the same photos, the same looking photos, particularly if you edit them. And to prove the point, I've brought my GFX along for this video as well. And I'll include, let's say, 3 photos in this video from the GFX, and I bet you can't tell which they are. Be annoying if you can. Anyway, we're nearly at the top, thankfully.
So, some initial impressions. When I first heard about this camera, expected it to be a bit of a gimmick, if I'm honest, with the retro design. It's anything but a gimmick. It feels very, very premium with the brass dials, the magnesium alloy, top and bottom plates. It's obviously got very solid internals with its processor and sensor. And I mean, the shutter sound, that is genuinely delightful. But like a lot of these cameras, your relationship with it or your considerations around buying it in the first place will probably be based around how much you plan on using these top dials. And for me, I wouldn't really consider using them all that much because I'm not the sort of photographer who really pays all that much attention to my exact shutter speed all that often. Ditto ISO, and I've made plenty of videos where I've discussed the fact that I typically shoot in auto ISO in conjunction with minimum shutter speed. I care very much what my minimum shutter speed is, but care very little normally what my actual shutter speed is, so long as it's above my minimum shutter speed. Yeah, and perhaps I can link to a video where I've discussed that at length. Yeah, and what that means for me is that these top dials, well, they're just redundant. And the problem with that is that these dials replace conventional dials on modern cameras, which typically have customizable modes, which I use all the time. And on my Fuji GFX, I've got all 6 custom modes set up, and I use all of them, whereas I don't have that with this camera or any camera like this that prioritizes shutter speed and ISO dials. Now, of course, that is entirely personal preference, but it is at the heart of how you use this camera, and therefore it becomes evident quite quickly that a camera like this is not for me and my shooting style. But like I say, it does feel a very premium piece of kit. I think in hindsight, to do it justice, I probably should have tried it with a grip, since so many other people do. Then again, I would suggest that there would be much less of a need for a grip if there was any kind of thumb support. And the cameras that I typically use most, this A7 IV from Sony, my A7R5 from Sony, and the Fuji GFX 100S II, they all have subtle but important thumb supports. And the reason that's important, particularly with a camera like this, is that if you don't have a substantial grip, your thumb has to do a lot of the work when you're trying to hold onto the camera. And there's nothing to really support your thumb from sliding off the back of the camera. If I'm holding on tightly, my thumb does have this tendency to slide off. And that is not a problem on the GFX, for example, A, because it's got a big front grip, but B, because it's got this massive thumb support. And so yeah, I think a thumb support would have done a lot of the heavy lifting for the ergonomic problems I have found when using this camera, in a way that's better, I think, probably, than having a grip on the front, given that this camera clearly prides itself on how it looks. So fundamentally changing how it looks by adding a grip to it seems a bit of a shame in some ways. The lens, this 40mm lens, and I imagine the 28mm that you can buy that's much like this, perfectly complement this camera, I think. It suits the character of this camera, and what I do love about this camera versus lots of the other fun cameras is that it's an interchangeable system. So this will work perfectly with a lens like this, but if you're somewhere where you want to stick a telephoto on, it'll work great too. And several people I know therefore use these as second bodies. If they've got like a Z8 or something, they'll use this for street photography and such, but they'll also have this as a second body when they're out in the wilderness and perhaps there's a telephoto or a wide angle attached to it in that instance. What else was I going to talk about? The aperture window, I suppose, speaks to the retro design, but in practice I think it's kind of redundant for the most part, because you've got an EVF and a screen that both tell you the aperture that you're at. I suppose if you're shooting from the hip and you're shooting using the ISO dial and the shutter speed dial, you can see all of your settings without looking either at the screen or the EVF. So in that instance, it probably is useful. Otherwise, there's not much point to it. But one other feature I do like is, and I don't know if I'm just imagining this, but on the exposure dial, there's slightly more resistance when you get to 0 than the other exposure values. I might be imagining that. So overall, this camera is not for me, but that is solely because of the way that it's designed to operate, which doesn't align with how I typically shoot. It's not because it's a bad camera. In fact, I think it's a very, very good camera. And I've been pleasantly surprised with how premium it feels, given that it's not in the same ballpark price-wise as something like a Leica. I think it looks cool. I think it'll age magnificently. And if you're in the market for one of these, because you typically shoot using these dials, then I think you'll absolutely love it. Anyway, hopefully that was interesting or useful, or both, and a big thank you to the sponsor of this week's video, MPB. And if you're in the market for this camera, or indeed pretty much any other digital camera, then definitely check out MPB. Their selection of cameras is always ginormous, their selection of lenses ditto, and you can save hundreds, if not thousands, by buying used. And you can do so safe in the knowledge that every single piece of equipment on the MPB website has been checked over thoroughly by experts. And I also highly recommend MPB for selling your equipment as well. You can get an instant quote on the MPB website for your gear, and if you're happy with that quote, MPB will arrange for a courier to come to your house to collect your kit, and once they've received it and checked it, you'll be paid very quickly. It's a fantastic service, and I'd highly recommend it, as I say. Oh, and when you buy from MPB, everything comes with a warranty. So definitely check out MPB in the links below, and a massive thank you to them for their continued support of the channel.
It's quite big, isn't it?
Yeah, it's long.
Yeah.
Quite long.
If you're from, I don't know, say like the US, you're probably thinking that doesn't look particularly big for a camper van, but we've got some quite narrow, tight little roads.
Yeah, the Lake District could be tricky, I've got to admit. If you hear that there's a big traffic jam, that could be me when I take it to the Lake District.
I want to be there the first time you have to reverse.
Yeah, getting it out of a drive, I've not done that really yet. That's going to be hard. Getting in was okay. It's been here for a year and a half.
Can we have a look round?
Yes.
Oh, so that's not dust, that's spray paint.
That's spray paint.
Nice.
But it'll come off when I'm going to have to polish it. So yeah, that's all spray paint.
Well, you learn most from mistakes,
It's
I suppose,
like
don't
you know, like you pay extra for that in your paint. Right, so where does it start? So had to cut these windows in, which was fun. On the roof there's a Starlink and a massive solar panel, which is pretty cool. So it should run. I mean, the solar panel takes a while to charge the battery, but if you're just running like charging your laptop and doing lights and stuff like that, then the solar panel, even if it's cloudy, gives you enough power. That's pretty good. It looks a bit of a mess, but it looks bad, but I'm closer than it looks. So I've done. So yeah, just doing like all these things. I made all the cabinets from scratch, and then spray painted the walls, and there's tons of insulation for when I go to like Norway or something like that.
It's going to look very smart.
I think so. I'm just at the moment doing this oak top here, so this was just, I'm just experimenting with a curved edge and stuff. So that's going to go here. There's going to be a sink, an induction hob, which is interesting because I've got a pacemaker, and basically you shouldn't use a pacemaker with an induction hob, but I'm quite a long way away from it.
Yeah,
so as long as I don't bend over it like that.
What could go wrong?
Yeah, it'll be fine. Bed. Oh, I've not shown you the best bit. So this is a monitor, but I didn't want a monitor just loose flying about. So I built this, and it's got an actuator in it. So I can press a button on the side, and the monitor just slides away, and then comes back out, and then I can just go like this, and then move it into position like that. Oh, and here, this is going to be a coffee machine in there, which is probably the most important thing in here. This is the electrics, quite a lot of it, quite complicated. Took me a while to sort this out, but I won't go through all the bits, but it should work.
Well, that's the main thing.
Yeah.
My word.
So this is hidden, not hidden anymore to everyone watching this, but
all the burglars watching this.
yeah. So there's a space in there.
Oh yeah.
Which is pretty good, and that just sort of then
Nifty. Soft close.
soft close on everything, of course.
Not jealous. Not at all. No. Don't want one. Anyway, this video is all over the place, isn't it? I'll end it now. Here. Oh, thanks for watching again. See you next time. There's a poodle.